Good evening and welcome to the Royal Opera House, to our audience here at the Claw studio upstairs, and to all of you who are watching via our YouTube live stream worldwide. Welcome. I'm Kevin O'Hare and I'm the director of the Royal Ballet. Tonight we are going to go behind the scenes at the Royal Ballet to look at how the Royal Ballet are preparing for this revival of Anastasia, a ballet by Kenneth MacMillan that hasn't been seen on the stage since 2004. We have Deborah MacMillan here, Viviana Durante, who will talk about the creation of the work and the history. We have dancers from the Royal Ballet rehearsing, and we will hear about the real-life inspiration of this amazing story. Anastasia will be performed on the 26th of October, that's the opening night, and there will be 10 more performances. We are also going live to cinemas on the 2nd of November, so please look at your local cinemas, see when it's on, and come and see this amazing ballet. To find your closest cinema, you can visit roh.org.uk/cinema. We'd also like you tonight to tweet, and to tweet your thoughts, all you have to do is go #ROHAnastasia. We look forward to hearing what you've got to say. The choreographer Kenneth MacMillan is one of the leading choreographers of his generation, a graduate of the Royal Ballet School, a dancer with the Royal Ballet, and then a choreographer who choreographed for many of the world's greatest companies. He was also the director of the Royal Ballet here from 1970 to 1977, and until his untimely death in 1992 was the principal choreographer. The ballet Anastasia started life as a one-act ballet for the Deutsche Oper in Berlin. And then when Kenneth became the director in 1970, he then brought it to the Royal Opera House, but as a three-act ballet, and it's this ballet that we're going to talk about tonight. Anastasia is based on the real-life story of Anna Anderson, who claimed to be the only surviving daughter of Tsar Nicholas II. To introduce us to the real Anna Anderson, please welcome Viv Groskop. Thank you.
I'm here to speak to you tonight as someone who loves dance, someone who's an art critic, and someone who most of all loves stories. And this is one hell of a story. Kenneth MacMillan's ballet, Anastasia, is based on the real-life story of a woman who was known during her lifetime by the name Anna Anderson. Whatever you may think about Anna Anderson's story, and many historians who have studied the Russian imperial family can't even bear to hear her name spoken out loud, it's a story that crosses paths with many of the most significant historical moments of the last century. It includes the rise and fall of the Russian imperial family, culminating in 1917, the chaos and poverty in 1920s Berlin and the aftermath of the First World War that led to the conditions for the Second World War, the rise and fall of the communist era, the discovery of DNA in the 1980s, and the ongoing tension in Russia now between the present and the past, which meant that the remains of the imperial family were only exhumed and DNA tested less than a decade ago. So whatever you think already about Anna Anderson and about the idea of Anastasia, the fourth daughter of the Tsar who may or may not have survived, there's no disputing that this is an extraordinary narrative. The whole saga started on the 27th of February 1920, when a young woman attempted to take her own life by jumping off a bridge in Berlin. She was taken by police to a mental institution where she was described as speaking German with a Russian accent. She was admitted as Fräulein Unbekannt, Miss Unknown. Within 2 years, another psychiatric patient was admitted to the institution who claimed suddenly to recognize Fräulein Unbekannt. Miss Unknown alleged this new patient was the Grand Duchess Tatiana of Russia, the second of the daughters of Tsar Nicholas II. Not Anastasia, Tatiana. And remember, this was not Miss Unknown, Fräulein Unbekannt, making this claim for herself. It was another patient. The other patient claimed to have seen Tatiana years before in Germany and recognized her again now. It wasn't an unreasonable claim, as Tatiana had visited that part of Germany. But people seem to ignore the fact that it was a psychiatric patient making this claim, and people who knew Tatiana began to visit the institution. None of them agreed with the patient that Miss Unknown might be Tatiana. One said, and I think, in my view, this is where it all began, "She's too short for Tatiana." Fräulein Unbekannt replied, and I think this is also important, "I never said I was Tatiana." It's not clear, in fact, that she ever said at this point that she was anyone from the Russian imperial family. But somehow the words, "I never said I was Tatiana," turned into, well, if she isn't Tatiana, could she be the smallest one, Anastasia? Years later, a nurse claimed that months ahead of the Tatiana claim, Fräulein Unbekannt had told her she was Anastasia. However, the story really came into being in May 1922 when several people, including exiled Russian dignitaries who had known the Tsar's family well and were desperate to know that perhaps one of them had survived, began themselves to believe that this woman was Anastasia. The woman herself, Fräulein Unbekannt, had by this point started to call herself Anna Tchaikovsky, which, if you think you might be Russian, is quite a good name to choose. So throughout the mid-1920s, and with spells in and out of different mental institutions, Anna Tchaikovsky, as she was then known, was visited by equal numbers of people who were convinced that she was definitely Anastasia, and people, including Anastasia's own wet nurse, who had known her throughout her childhood, people who were convinced that she was not. Even around this time, there was considerable evidence, not least if you use common sense, to suggest that the story was bogus. In 1927, a relative of the Romanov family hired a detective to investigate the case. He found evidence of a Polish woman called Franziska Szankowska, who had been living in Berlin and received an injury to the head in an accident in a munitions factory where she was working. This woman was admitted to an asylum and then disappeared altogether from the records in 1920. The detective tracked down this woman's brother from Poland and brought him to meet the woman who by now was calling herself Anna Tchaikovsky. She showed no signs of recognizing this man, and he could only say that this woman bore a strong resemblance to his sister, who he hadn't seen for 7 years. And so the claim was neither proved nor disproved. Many years later, the brother admitted that he knew all along that this woman was his sister, but that he had chosen to leave her to her new life, which was far more comfortable than any alternative. Meanwhile, the case of the glamorous Anna Tchaikovsky was sparking interest in America, especially amongst distant relatives of the Russian imperial family, many of whom believed the Tsar probably had a secret fortune abroad, which would eventually be settled on Anastasia. Others hoped that the Russian Empire would return, and they would be rewarded for protecting and helping the Tsar's only surviving child. A distant cousin paid for Anna to be relocated to New York, and there she met other distant cousins who became more and more convinced that, yes, she was Anastasia. Almost as soon as she arrived in the United States, quarrels over the existence of the fortune and over Anna Tchaikovsky's identity erupted. And at one point, the great composer Rachmaninoff, fascinated by her story and himself in exile in New York, felt compelled to intervene, putting Anna up in a hotel in New York where he checked her in under the name Anna Anderson to avoid the press. I think if you're going to have any name, it's quite nice to have one chosen by Rachmaninoff. This became the name by which she was subsequently known. Now, this time in Anna's life in New York would perhaps be funny if it were not so sad. For a while, she became the toast of New York society, but it eventually all became too much for her. She threw public tantrums, she ran around the roof of her host's apartment naked, and on one distressing occasion, she became so enraged that she killed her pet parakeet. This is surely not the behaviour of a descendant of the Russian Tsar. She was eventually committed, or perhaps it is, she was eventually committed to a sanatorium and after 4 years in America, sent back to an institution in Germany where for the best part of 30 years she lived off the charity of people who continued to believe her claim. During her lifetime, many regarded Anna as a calculating psychopath. Others saw her, as I do, as the victim of the delusion and false hopes of others. I'm inclined to go along with the assessment of the writer Michael Thornton. Somewhere along the way, she lost and rejected Franziska Szancowska. She lost that person totally and accepted completely that she was this new person. I think it happened by accident, and she got swept along by a wave of euphoria. She surfed the wave of euphoria for a long time. Perhaps one of the most fascinating, almost ironic things about Franziska Szancowska is how long she lived. She was born in 1896, and so she wasn't even the right age to be Anastasia, who was born in 1901. But she died in 1984 at the age of 87 in Charlottesville, Virginia. In the late 1960s, she returned to America from Germany and married a history professor called Jack Manahan, a wealthy eccentric who enjoyed styling himself as the son-in-law of the Tsar and the Grand Duke in waiting. Although he was wealthy, he and Anna lived in squalor with large numbers of dogs and cats and piles of garbage. I like to think that they loved each other. When she was institutionalized at one point, when neither of them could cope, he kidnapped her from the hospital, and for 3 days they drove around Virginia trying to evade the police, buying food from convenience stores. They were found and she was returned to a care facility. I don't think you would do this if you didn't love someone. Or maybe that's just as fanciful as the idea that she was Anastasia. In 1985, a year after the death of Fräulein Unbekannt, Miss Unknown, Anna Tchaikovsky, Anna Anderson, all the people who were Franziska Szancowska, DNA testing was invented. Her relatives in Poland were tested. It was a match. She was from the Szancowska family. Years later, when the remains of the Romanov family were finally revealed in 2007, there was, of course, no match. It seemed clear with hindsight that this was a case of a patient with a severe mental illness who really did very little herself to advance the story that others wanted to assign to her. The story of the improbable survival of Anastasia was simply too good for people not to want to believe it. It inspired a musical with a score written by Rachmaninoff, a film with Ingrid Bergman for which she won an Academy Award, an animated Disney film which took $139 million at the box office, and of course, MacMillan's Ballet, which was based on the story told in the best-selling German biography published in 1957, I, Anastasia. In this account, the author Roland Krug von Nidda imagined Anastasia's past and escape from Russia. She'd escaped to Romania on a farm cart with a man called Alexander Tchaikovsky, whom she married and had a child by. He was then shot dead in the street in Bucharest, and the child was taken into an orphanage. She spends the rest of her life grieving for her husband, her child, her identity, and her lost legacy, tortured by the fact that others don't understand who she is and not entirely sure that she knows who she is herself. As I said, it's a great story. But the real story of Anna is the story of Franziska, and it's a tragic one. It's a story about how for almost a century people would rather believe in a fairy tale than examine the truth about mental illness. Above all, though, MacMillan's Ballet is about an attempt to recover memory. Despite it being about such a bizarre, eccentric and specific case, the ballet itself has a universal quality, as does Franziska Szancowska's story. We all know what it feels like at times in our lives to question who we are and why our lives have brought us to where we are now. We all know what it feels like to feel alienated, perhaps to wish that we were someone else. The attraction of the Anna Anderson myth is obvious, and this is what makes MacMillan's work still relevant, poignant, and challenging. Because even though we know this story cannot be true and is not true, it's scientifically proven that it is not true, we still want it to be true. And this is something that says more about us than it ever said about Anastasia. We would rather believe a lie than be denied the romance, nostalgia, and delight of imagining that the story was real. Because whatever her story represents, most of all, it represents the one thing we all need to survive: hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Viv. Absolutely fascinating account of the life of Anne Anderson, and it just makes us really want to see the ballet even more now that we've got that knowledge behind us. So I'm delighted to say we're about to start rehearsing. So I'm thrilled to introduce principal dancer Laura Morera, coach, there we are, our coach Viviana Durante. On the piano, we have Philip Cornfield and Gary Harris, who is staging the ballet for us. So, Gary, I'm going to talk to Viviana later, but you're staging the ballet, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well later. But this moment that we're going to rehearse now, can you tell us a little bit about it and when it comes in the ballet?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is sort of go from one end of the ballet to the other. So starting in the first act, which is the real Anastasia as a child on the Royal Yacht Standard with the family on holiday. You know, innocence, purity, she's just a happy child, and it's a really beautiful little solo that she performed, which we were going to work on, and then go to the other end of the ballet as Anna Anderson in her room, you know, in the institution, in the asylum, and work a little bit through those solos, and just, you know, so you got each
the
end
contrast. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Let's go.
Thank you. So this is Anastasia's first act solo, which I think is so beautiful. It's so pure and so lyrical, and we've already sort of been working on it, obviously. So we'll just sort of go through again what we're doing. So starting off just as a bourrée, yeah. So we're going to bourrée, arabesque here and through, and then limp, two, ba yum, ba bum, 5 and 7 and 8 and 2, 3, 4 and down and 2 and 3 and 4. Yep, pirouette, arabesque, chasse, and coming back, diagonal up that way. Coming down this way and yum, soutenu, soutenu. Should we just do that much? Yeah. Let's just hear it for phrasing. So thanks, Phil. Just 4 in, please. Thank you. And 1. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And yum. 2 and 3, 4 and yum. Okay, let's just stop there. Good. Okay, good. Yeah, nice. Here, I think just as we're going across here, yeah, arabesque, really show your back, really stretch that side there. That's it, yeah. Now here, just gentle, don't travel too much because you've got quite a long way to go.
Laura, don't forget that you're sort of thoughtful here, you're quite thoughtful. You're sort of in...
Yeah, in your own little world.
Yeah.
So we're just focused on this lovely child just dancing peacefully.
Laura, we're thoughtful, so the emotion is that. Just make sure you're still stepping out on your arabesque and, you know, using the full of the stage, yes?
That difficulty between making everything
yes. Yeah, it's okay. You can do that with your top half and your bottom half does something else, yeah? So
Same again, thanks.
Do you remember what I said to you this morning? Yeah. Just think of it. Yeah, your motion comes from here, not from the outside, comes from the inside. Okay, let's go.
Okay, thanks. And
Out.
1. Good.
Out. Better. Step out. Up.
step out. And okay, let's just stop there. Okay, thanks, Phil. Thank you. Good. Yeah, those, I think, on those, don't you, Viv, just sort of think of the coming down rather than the staying, like you're just, yeah, immediately come off point, so you're always in control.
Yeah, use your plie. Use your plie. So use the floor. Out.
Come down.
That's it.
Oof,
out.
Come down, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Come down,
It's
good.
like you're stepping on water. This is when we see her. She's young at this point, you know, it's the first act. So you can be slightly playful and light. Yeah. Just try this bit, Laura, when you're doing after the pirouette into the arabesque. So step out. Use that plie. Step out onto your leg. Don't restrict your movement. Out, 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 out. Yes, much better.
That's it.
Yeah. So you're thoughtful, I understand, and you're doing it brilliantly, but you're still using, you know, the whole of your body and everything. Yeah. Can we just do that little bit? So
The
it
two
works, the
soutanees.
diagonal,
Do
please,
you know where we are, Phil? On Dililan, Dililan, the two soutanees?
Yeah, don't lose that. You sort of tend to get
Yeah.
a little bit into yourself, yeah?
Yeah,
Out.
thanks. This is 8 before, two soutanees, pirouette, arabesque. 6.
Out, out, up, yes. Shoulders back. Yes.
And then
Out, step out. Shoo,
Good.
shoo. That's it. Quick, 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 quick. Out, out, out.
Yeah.
Slow, slow. Fast, 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 fast.
Okay, yeah. Should we just stop there? Thanks, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, that thing like you said, sorry, you're right. Yeah. That going quicker, quicker, quicker. Isn't it?
It's like emotionally
yeah.
as well. It goes, you know, the music says da, da, dee, da, dee, da, and then it's like you're in water. Yeah, so you change
Banging
again.
paddles.
And then it's quite playful, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah,
Can we just do that bit? So
Yeah,
we get
I was going to say also on that, looking before you actually go. So your focus is has already gone there. Looking there. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
On
Want to
the
just pick it up going into the chaînés?
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
chaînés, Laura, on the chaînés.
4 in?
Use that, yeah? You
Thank
think
you.
you're going fast, but you mustn't get smaller. Just keep this like that, out, yeah? Use your head and keep your legs together. Can we have something into the chaîné, please?
Okay, and.
Slow, slow, slow. Fast, 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 fast. Yes. 1, 2, 3. Good. And go, 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 go. And. Yes.
Good. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, that was better.
good.
Yeah. Loosen up my neck a bit.
Yeah, that was better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like she's a little girl here. She's young and she can be very playful,
yeah,
like you can turn
absolutely.
like.
See, it looks so easy, when I watch it.
It ain't.
She's given away the magic.
Video. But it's quite hard, because you're stepping out, it's sharp. This is soft, and then you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And keeping that control, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of going through your feet and being
Yeah.
on your
It's
leg.
actually one of the
Yeah.
Think of the character. Think of what you're doing, and the situation you're in as well. It will just, the body looks after itself. Yeah,
I
just
think what's
careful
lovely
of
about
this.
this solo is in the piece, you know, people are dancing, the sisters are all dancing, and the family are together, and then suddenly that focus just
Yeah.
goes right on you, this very gentle, soft, lyrical.
She's slightly lonely as well in this solo,
Yeah.
isn't she? There's something lonely
Yeah.
about her and thoughtful. You know, just be careful of this movement. It doesn't become too, you know, it's too much. It's out. It's not towards your, that's it. So it's not towards your foot. Yeah, it's more of, yeah.
Yeah. We'll do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, from the top?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
It's getting easier.
Thanks, Phil. Fair. Lovely.
Good, lovely.
Yeah.
Very nice. Nice. Good.
Good.
You all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. It was much better.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just don't forget, especially sometimes with nerves, you know, one tends to draw into themselves. Just make sure you step out. Yeah, use that stage, use that floor.
I think what
Yeah.
really helps is
The
really
plie.
like, yeah,
Mm.
getting actually for all these steps.
Yes.
It makes you feel a bit younger somehow to
Yeah.
be back on it.
Yeah. Yeah, you see? Use that heel. Use that heel.
But yeah, it just makes you
So by the end of the
Yeah.
solo, you'll be like 12.
Yeah.
But it's true, yeah? Just, it's there to help you, the floor, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're light on top, the emotion is light, but just,
yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
yeah.
Should we go to the third act now, to Anna Anderson?
Take your shoes off, yeah.
Just to give you some context, the first act, as I said, is set on the royal yacht with the family, and then towards the end of the first act, Tsar Nicholas gets a telegram that war's been declared, so off they go. The second act is the grand ball of Anastasia's sort of coming out presentation to the court. You know, huge, big, glittery, grand ball where Anastasia dances with the officers and her sisters. And there's still beautiful moments where she's suddenly amongst all these people very alone and just sort of very little girl wandering along tapping the floor, which is kind of a motif that comes back in the part we're going to show you now. At the end of the second act, there's a couple of front cloth scenes with the revolutionaries and the peasants. And then at the end of the second act, while all the court are going mad and dancing, the revolutionaries storm the palace, and that's the end of the second act. And then we go into the third act, which is set in the asylum. And the beginning of the third act starts off with Anastasia just sat on a very plain metal bed at the back of the stage. And then there's nurses and the relatives and doctors and the soundtrack of just babbling voices and odd words popping out here and there and clangs and noises. And she's just sat on the bed in a sort of more or less totally catatonic state, just staring ahead. Then there's a short film clip of original footage of the royal family. And then it goes into the Martinů score starts, and this is where we'll pick it up from now. So, excuse me. So we've already sort of taught the steps, so we can just talk a little about, yeah. Thanks.
No, Laura is usually, she will be on point at this stage, but I just want them to feel grounded, to feel, I want their movement to be more normal, to come from, you know, when they're running to really run, when they're walking to just walk, yes? So I'm working on, I like them to feel the floor, to feel the gravity, to feel quite different, heavier than the first and the second half. She's in a different place, different situation, different story. And I think this is a good way to achieve that. So we've been working like this, even though she will be wearing, obviously, point shoes in the ballet.
We were saying the other day in rehearsal that she'd probably, you know, be full of drugs, would have had hydrotherapy, electrotherapy, all the sort of horrors that they used to put onto people in institutions. So, you know, she's pretty zonked. So this is the first time, you know, we see you sort of come alive. So should we just hear it? And so, Phil, if we can go to the beginning of the 5, standing up. Thank you.
Okay. Laura.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks, Phil. Good.
Good. So, Laura, that was great. Yeah. No. You're doing brilliant. It's just brilliant. When like we were talking before about not making things small.
Yeah.
So don't restrict the movement, even though you're going to a place emotionally.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you get up, you know exactly what you're doing. You stand up straight, and then you start. Okay. As you do this, don't restrict the movement. Yeah. Don't get small, even though the feeling is good. Heaviness, confusion. You're trying to find your way. You're trying to look at the floor. But don't restrict that movement. Don't be afraid of making things big. Yeah.
Mm. I think that you can still be more sort of feel with your toes the floorboards.
Yeah.
Fascination.
Go further,
with,
further.
Wow,
That's
what,
it.
You know.
Yeah.
Keep it big, and then what's that behind you? So it's like, oh, there's another one. You know, so it's all around you. What's going on? What's going on? There's just to explain. The real Anastasia had a birthmark on her hand, and I believe Anna Anderson had a mark on her hand as well, which sort of. So this comes in a lot during this act, that she's sort of looking at this mark on her hand. So when you see that, when you turn, it's like to us out here. No, look, I am. Look. And then you turn into I'm Anastasia before that moment. So we really see that moment of this very internal, suddenly out to us, and then it all goes, back into yourself again, yeah. Mm. Yeah.
Laura, just be careful when you're turning. Okay, you're here. Make sure you get closer to the floor. Yeah? When you turn, try not to make the sharp movement. Mm-hmm. you're not in that place yet until you get further down, and then, baby, pain. Yeah, so just keep it it's quite mysterious. You're intrigued, you're confusion, so, yeah. When you're sitting there, don't be afraid to look ugly. Yeah? You're very beautiful, so just don't be afraid to, yeah? You can even be like this. You can be like that. You can, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Thank you, Phil.
That was better.
Yeah.
Now, just that last little bit, I'm so annoying. I have more and more things to say. So before you turn, have a moment, okay? You're turning because you're hearing something. So you hear something, you turn. So don't turn and go, yes? Turn and then go to the bed. The bed is a safety for you.
Yeah.
That's all you know right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just give it that moment.
Right?
Yeah, I would. But stop, hear something, makes you turn and then go. Don't turn and go.
Yeah.
If you heard something, you would first look, right?
Yeah.
You look and then you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would try, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, I would pass the bed, go on the other side, then you have a diagonal to the bed, because if you're in front of it, it's quite difficult for us to see, like, do you know what I mean? So bigger steps.
So maybe not
on
so,
the other side.
Do you think not so far for this, or shall I try to go as far?
No, I would
make
just
it
travel
bigger?
it, yeah, travel it.
Of course you would.
Can you, I want you to go, yeah? Bring it out.
Make a noise.
Make noises. Yes. And then all the way around.
Oh.
Do it again. Do it again.
Okay.
Go on. Cool. That's it. Don't do that at the end. If you do that at the end, you just take it away. Just exactly.
Yeah.
Great. And you do that, and it's the same. You don't forget. You hear, you turn. Yeah. It's like, do you remember I said to you when the sound comes in?
Yeah, no.
You hear it. If you do that, you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You hear something, and then you go. And then you hear it again, and then you have a movement. That's the first time you hear it, there's stillness. Because you're trying to understand where the sound is coming from and where.
Yeah.
It's important you do that and try. Can we just try
Yeah,
that? So
yeah.
you must use the stage. There's only you on the stage. You must fill it. Yeah?
Phil, have you got the beginning of the 9, the walk around? So just from the 9 walk around, yeah? Thanks, Phil, and. Thanks. Good.
It was so much better.
Yeah.
You're still anticipating because you know it's coming, that going to the bed, yeah?
No, it's really true. Like
You know it's coming, yeah? So
I'm
I
really
understand.
into it in this, and then I'm waiting for it.
Yeah.
It's almost like if that bang didn't happen, you'd just keep going.
Yes, exactly.
And go off the stage.
And you know what? It's almost better to be slightly late, so you hear it, and then you turn, and then you go. It's better.
A good way, because I think sometimes I'm early and then I stop.
And there's that moment of not...
I think it's better if I just kind
Just
of...
keep going.
Wait, hear it.
Doom. Yeah.
That's it. Can we just listen to that again, Philip? I'm sorry. It's the
From
same
the
place.
ninth?
Yeah, same
Thanks.
place, please.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah.
Better. Now try and find that stillness before you hear it. So you just get that boom, turn. Yeah, try not to give us those steps, yeah? Okay. Let's go on. If you need to go on. Do we need to go on?
Yeah,
Or?
we have to stop.
Yep.
Hi. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Carries her own chairs as well, you know, as well as doing all
At
the
the
work.
end of it.
Yeah. Lara, you've been, of course, in Anastasia before as one of the sisters, but this is the first time you're delving into the role of Anastasia. Already we can see the contrast in the different acts and the different parts of the character. Are you going to enjoy that, relish that opportunity to bring those two things out?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think it's quite rare that you get to do that range within a ballet. I mean, you do always grow, and in MacMillan ballets, and there's a depth.
I think I'm
somewhere.
supposed to give you
Yes.
that.
But to actually have it in one ballet, and just so different, you know, two completely different people, but just connected by this belief, you know, that's something I read that, I think I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, but that when Lynn and MacMillan created it, it was a belief, they both really believed that this woman, she really believed in it. There was no doubt in her mind, and I think that's quite important. It's an amazing chance, you know, and I've been here a long time, and I think I don't take for granted a chance like this, even, you know, at this point in my career. So it's quite amazing, yeah.
Great, great. And of course, we've got Viviana with us, and so you've only just started working with her. Tell us, we don't want to hear what it's like working with Gary, but tell us what it's like. But tell us what it's like. I mean, obviously, you probably, when you were at school, not that Viviana's so old, but you would have seen her. She would have been one of the principal dancers.
Well, I think I was a relative when Viviana did Anastasia. So, but I grew up. Sorry, Viviana, it's going to be a little bit embarrassing for you, but I grew like Lauren and myself. We grew up with Viviana, and she was the person that I probably learned so much from watching. And even now, at times when I feel a bit lost, I find a video of her. And so to have the chance to have that input, and she was such an amazing actress and such an amazing dancer, and I think, you know, it's never too late to learn all that. Mm-hmm. And she's just incredibly generous. And from the first day, you know, you can tell she cares so much, not only about the piece, but about us, even though she's only just really started to meet us. Really generous, and I've learned so much in 2 days already, like things that probably other people have told me, but, you know...
It's always nice to hear it fresh
and
coming from a different
like
eye.
the things that I have to work on, and I hope I change and it improves the dancer that I am, because I know she's going to give me that chance, so I hope that I take it on, basically.
And, you know, you've got an incredible range, and you're opening the season with La Fille Margare as Lise, and then you go on to MacMillan, one of the... It's probably the female equivalent, isn't it, of Rudolph, really, you know. So incredible to see you in both those roles for the audience. But for yourself, how do you approach it? Do you go, oh, God, right, now that was Ashton, now I'm going to do MacMillan like this, or are you just looking at the character and telling the story? Is that where you go?
Yeah, I think we look at the character, and I know the style of both choreographers enough to be comfortable enough, because I've worked here for so long. Obviously, I've done Fille for a long time, so I just go from my happy place to not my happy place to not. But I get all my fees. You know, again, it's why this company is so incredible, I think, for the audience and for the people in it, because one night you can have this ballet full of humor, and then it just pushes your range, and it pushes you as an artist and as an actress, and that's amazing, because we're not just technique but you know, dancers. It's so much more than that, and that's why it's an art form. And I think that's what both Ashton and MacMillan, and you know, these new choreographers coming up, that's what the heritage of this place is.
No, well, we're really looking forward to both of them, but also seeing you tackle this role. I know you're going to be brilliant in it, and no pressure there. But no, it's going to be wonderful to see you in it. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
So I'm now really delighted to welcome Deborah MacMillan. Hi, Deborah, you all right? Okay. Good. We'll do two. So people, you could hear Laura just saying then, people have heard stories about how Kenneth came to create this ballet and what he believed in it. So you're the person to ask. You were there and you know what
I wasn't in Berlin.
You weren't in Berlin.
No, but Viv's quite right. It's a great story, and Kenneth loved a good story. And I think in having created the last act as a one act, and when he came in as director, he then had a responsibility to an entire company. And he was riveted and fascinated by history and real or imagined or opinion or whatever, and he developed it at the time. There was a lot of flack because it was very different from what the audience was expecting, and certainly what the critics were expecting. He kept working on it, and I feel it's a ballet that was in a sort of state of gestation all the time. Not long before he died, he said, I'm going to rework it entirely, and I'm going to ask Bob Crowley to design it. Because the original design, which was very beautiful, took 45 minutes to put up the second act, which was lovely for the bar sales, but ran into overtime. And in those days, overtime didn't cost quite what it does now.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So I had no hesitation to asking Bob. They'd worked together very successfully at the National Theatre on Carousel, and he grabbed hold of the idea, and I think he's done an absolutely beautiful job, because now it's much more about an identity crisis, I think, and we all have those growing up. And somehow this, as Viv was saying brilliantly earlier, I think, this is something that she became the sort of recipient of other people's hopes and expectations, and that's, we all have that with our parents, of course, but not quite to that extent, where you're suddenly expected to be somebody entirely other. And if you've had a knock on the head and you've tried to jump into the river, you're not in any fit state to actually say, no, hang on a minute, this is not what's happening. You'd probably be grasping at straws. I think if he were here now, he'd still believe, I think, a bit of him, and all hope that, maybe the DNA was wrong. But we can't do that. Yeah. And Gary's been brilliant, because Kenneth tried to make various changes musical changes, because it does go on a bit. And at the time that he wanted to make those changes, people were very nervous of upsetting the musicologists. But Barry Wordsworth was incredibly helpful initially when it was revived after Kenneth's death, and said no, because Kenneth always wanted to cut the fugue in the first act. And Barry came to the house and I said, look, this is something he wanted to do. Ashley Lawrence wouldn't let him. What do you think? And he sat down at the piano and went, oh, it's the same key. Of course it can go boom. Yeah. So, I think people are much more, the very fact that he used two composers.
But I was going to say that, because, of course, originally, in 1971, people weren't doing that at all, were they? No. As always, he was breaking down those barriers and doing different things, and so that was probably one of the reasons why people sort of got it slightly affronted by it.
Not slightly.
I was being polite,
No, they were horrified. First of all, their darling Frederick Ashton had resigned and gone, and Kenneth came in at a very difficult moment with the two companies. I mean, it's all there in the, you know, the history of the house, and it wasn't easy, and he wasn't, you know, he wasn't an easy person to actually be able to stand up like you can. He always found that very, very difficult. But I think, I mean, you'll hear from Viv later, once he was in a rehearsal room with the people he really, really knew and trusted, and all sorts of things happened from scratch in the room with them, and they trusted him and he trusted them, and I think, you know, all of his various muses, as they like to call them, achieved astonishing things with him, and it's a great pleasure for me. I mean, I've been here all day, sitting. I'm exhausted, watching Laura, who's been rehearsing since 3 o'clock, 110%. I don't know how they do it, I really don't, but they do, and they go on trying to break into, you know, the role and understand it, and
the character, and just hearing those things from Viviana passing on, you know, which is so important. The this idea of, yes, she's in search of an identity, it's this sort of outsider as well, which of course everybody always says that Kenneth was drawn to, this person. Do you think it really was like that? He, you know, these people, that maybe that shyness in himself as well, slightly.
And he was trying to be a dancer in Great Yarmouth. And boys didn't do that.
You would be an outsider, wouldn't you?
Boys didn't do that. I mean, they have a story now that it was announced at assembly at his grammar school that he'd won a scholarship, and everybody applauded. His memory was people were so vile, he left the school and never went back. So, I mean, he was all of 14, so I don't know what the real story was, you know, if that's what they want to believe, and it's lovely that they do, and they put a plaque up and everything. But he couldn't wait to leave. But I think when he came, you know, I think he did feel like an outsider. He was obsessed with it, and you know, got himself down to London and was given a scholarship and arrived aged 15 and started his career. And then suffered severe stage fright, which, you know, then knocked it on the head, but then he choreographed instead.
No, and the other thing that I love about, because he did have a love of classicism, didn't he? And this ballet shows it, because we're going to see another extract, which is this pure classical ballet, pas de deux, really, and the mixture in that solo that Laura does in the beginning. You know, it's such a beautiful, delicate solo, isn't it? So you see both sides of him as a choreographer as well in this piece.
Oh, yes, and choreographically, he never wanted to work with people whose classicism wasn't right up there at a very high standard. Because I mean, whenever he was involved with the company here and then with AVT and Houston, he used to be absolutely scone hot on them doing the classics to a standard that would then mean he could use them in any way at all. And so the classics had to be kept there. And he loved it. You know, at the end of his life, he did Princess of Pagodas, which is a classical ballet.
And you did tell me that story when he came out for his curtain call, didn't he?
I know. There'd been a rather negative article about the death of classical ballet in London, and Kenneth, who was not prone to shouting at the audience at all, took a call, ran downstage and shouted, "Classical ballet's alive and well and living in London." And I was sitting there thinking, what's got into him?
It was a brilliant story. Just before Viviana joins us, we were talking about Bob Crowley and the set, so we just to show you those that, for people that haven't seen it, here we are. This is Anastasia Act 1, isn't it?
Yes.
And quite different from the original version, isn't it? And it's sort of, it tells you all you need to know, of course. You know where you are. You're on this wonderful boat. I
mean, the whole thing is like a memory. It's now like a flashback, and that's how we're doing it. Also, it's going out on a cinema relay, so audiences change. New audiences, we hope, will come. So I think these works, you know, they need to remain alive and keep living for each generation.
And these sort of designs really come across in the cinema so well. You know, when we've seen Bob's other work, in the cinema, it's brilliant to see them. And now with Act 2, we're having a slight redesign because Bob was feeling.
Well, originally the Winter Palace was actually just a building, and when we were having a chat, and I said, if you know, the second act actually. Rasputin is now dead and is there as a ghost. And she keeps seeing him, but nobody else does. But so this is starting, the nightmare is starting in this act. So everything is just slightly off-kilter and and then towards the end of it, of course. But I think he's achieved I think that's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, no, spectacular. And then we go into the last act, which of course we're just in the sparse room, but there we have, from the last time we did it, there's the video and the footage, and so that's also telling us what's going through her mind at the time and remembering where she was. But, so that's all to look forward to. So I'm really thrilled that I've had the opportunity to bring Viviana back home to the Royal Ballet, and so she's here to be with us for the whole time, right up until the premiere. So welcome back, Viviana.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's lovely to be here.
Now, of course, Viviana, you work with Kenneth a lot, and so let's talk a little bit about working with him first, and then we'll talk about this specific production, because of course you were Anastasia in the new Anastasia.
Well,
so working in the studio with Kenneth.
Well, I mean, the fact that he actually he involved us in the working process of something. So he was never about giving us steps. It was all about the interpretation of the storytelling, and it always gave us that gap to be involved, you know, to be involved in the process of actually, you know, making a step out of what we were trying to say of the scene, which is very. So he gave us responsibility, which is a great thing to do to an
How much
artist.
did he tell you? So let's take one of the great ballets, his last ballet, actually, Judas Tree. You know, what did you know when you were in the studio, or was it just? Did it just go? You know, the famous story of Manon when he gave, which is pretty obvious because it's Manon, but he gave Antony and Antoinette the book, didn't he, to read in the summer?
Right, yeah.
But with something like Judas Tree, which is a little bit more.
He told me that it would be about a rape. A very long rape, like a 12-minute rape. That is sort of, you know, basically that's what it. How did I feel? Well, I was in good hands, you know. I felt safe with Kenneth. I think anybody else I would have freaked out. But he was so caring as well for the dancers. So he kind of taught me through the whole thing. He was really, really caring for the artists and, you know, as people as well, which is. It's a wonderful thing to do because you feel slightly vulnerable, especially in a rehearsal room or on stage, and he gave you that sense of security.
Yeah. And of course, you did all the big Kenneth roles as well, but of course they're always coming after somebody. But you were fortunate to have them around, so they sort of became your own as well, which I think is.
Of course. Well, he left you that gap to make it your own. Just by talking to you about the role, by talking to you about what was happening at that moment, and he was absolutely very happy for us to even change a couple of, you know, steps within within his limits of the storytelling. I mean, he's the nearest you can get to a theatre director in the ballet in the ballet world. For me, you get a theatrical experience. You know, you go through a whole journey. Doing one of his ballets, which is wonderful for an artist.
Yeah. And then when you approached Anastasia, of course you hadn't done it while he was alive. It hadn't been performed for quite a while, hadn't it? Between, can't remember what the dates were. And so when you brought it back in, where did you start? You know, it's fascinating hearing the other Viv with her story about Anna Anderson. Where did you start when you were tackling the role? Did you read books? Did you see cinema?
Absolutely. Yeah. I like reading. I read as much as I could, and I did see some, you know, movies on Anastasia. But I think it was mainly we started learning the third act, which is Identity Crisis, which is. I think it reflects on dancers go through all the time. You know, I think most people do, but dancers especially, you know, playing so many roles, and this art form that we do is quite difficult. So there is something that you recognise in that trying to find who you are in the middle of all this wonderful thing that we do. So we started on the third act with Monica Parker at the time. And she, because she'd worked with Kenneth MacMillan a lot, she just taught me through the whole story as I was reading and finding out as well. And it's wonderful because even though in the third act it is about counts as well, which is very rare, you know, in a ballet, but you kind of, you get over that very quickly if you just understand where you are in those specific places. Then even though the music, it is about counts, you know, it's easy to learn those counts. Just through the storytelling. And as I was saying to Laura, And I was saying, just allow the choreography to look after the role for you. Don't try and do too much on your own. It's like words, for an actor. The words speak for you, so the choreography speaks for you, helps you to tell the story. So don't try to do it all yourself, detaching yourself from that. So.
Yeah. And you've got the atmosphere and where you are, and the soundscape as well is really important in that last act, and that adds to the music, the Martinů music, and you really can just be that person, can't you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sadly, I'm afraid we're going to go on to some more rehearsal, but you're going to join us with Gary for that.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Deborah, for coming with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Gary, for those people that don't know what a stager is or a producer, what's your role here when you come to work with the Royal Ballet and with something like Anastasia?
Well, my responsibility really in my job is to teach the ballet, teach the steps, make sure everybody knows what they're doing, they know the counts, they're safe, they know what they're doing, they know their roles, they know where they should be. The whole lot.
Yes, yeah. So it's a little weight on your shoulders. Yeah.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. But with Kenneth, you've worked a lot. You staged very successfully this year for us The Invitation, which was a wonderful revival. But you've worked a lot on his work.
Yes, Manon and Romeo and Juliet, Anastasia, and obviously knew Kenneth way back.
Yes,
So I had that. A short relationship working with him in the studio and getting to know him and getting to know the person that he was, his generosity of that I used to feel safe sitting next to him and saying, Kenneth, can I say something? He'd go, yeah, what? Go on, fix it, So, it's a lovely thing to have that from a choreographer and as Viv said, what's so great about working on the MacMillan ballets is it's not just about steps and counts. Almost every step, every movement has a meaning, and he's saying something which makes it my job much easier because you're telling the story as you're teaching the work.
And it's great that because you've worked with him, you know that if something's not quite working for a dancer, if it needs to go, the weight needs to go more on this foot or that, you can really go there with them.
Yeah, we had an example today with Lauren and Eric doing one of the third act pas de deux, and the difference of heights, so there's different grips and different, you take a different place of the body, so we had to look at that and figure it out, and little things, and obviously dancers put in little things and you go, oh, that's fantastic, keep it. So.
Brilliant. Yeah. And so what are we going to see now?
We're going to see the pas de deux from the second act, which is really a divertissement within the ballroom. And the character is Mathilde Chessinskaya and her partner. Mathilde Chessinskaya was a prima ballerina at the Mariinsky Theatre. And she was also Tsar Nicholas's lover way before he met and married Alexandra. So she was quite out of the picture, but she was still a great star in Russia with the ballet company, and so would have been present at these grand occasions. And she went on to have a sort of string of very, very rich, very, very royal lovers. And I think when she eventually in exile in Paris, she married a Grand Duke. But there's all these stories that she was given all these jewels that she used to sew into her costumes. So when she came out on stage, you could hardly see her because she was just blinged up to the nines. So this is the pas de deux from
Fantastic. And of course, this was created on Antoinette Sibley and Anthony Dow. So big shoes to fill, but I'm delighted that we've got one of our newest principal dancers, Akane Takada, here, and together with our first soloist, James Hay. Thank you.
Okay. Hello. So we've already learned, James and Akane have already learnt this, and we've already had some rehearsals, so we're sort of getting there. So I guess what we could do now is just sort of walk through, just hear it musically and just mark it gently. Just have a look, and then we can stop and go back and tweak a few things. Yeah? So, are there any questions you want to ask about anything? They're doing really well. It's a really difficult pas de deux, so, you know, should we just have a look? Just gently, yeah? Don't kill yourselves to start. Okay, Phil. 6 in, thanks.
So are you marking it, or you're doing? Are they marking?
Yes, I think just for musicality.
Really mark it, yeah. So
really,
do your arms,
just
mark it.
arms and you know, very clear where you are. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Okay, should we just stop there? Do that much? Yeah? Okay. Just looking at that there, Akane, if you can be much more in that first glissade, so it's really exciting. But stop, and then off you go, yeah? That part there. And James, just when you come through here, really step away from her so she's got somewhere to go to peek into that attitude, yeah. Otherwise she'd be, yeah, good. Okay, should we look at that? Okay, guys, thanks, Phil. Yeah. That's good. Okay, let's just stop there. Okay, good. Okay. Good. Here, when your head's front, yeah? When you finish there. So when you do this ton levé, really give it out over there. Yeah, don't. So you really direct the step. Yeah. Just walk, just go into this next attitude. So make sure as you come around here, really step there. So we have a moment of attitude flat onto him, yeah? Not going around the corner. And then just go on. Just do that. Lift there. And then, ding, yeah, change. Good. Yeah, should we just hear that bit?
Can I just say, I have one correction. Try not to be much more in control of your leg. Try not to kick it. I know the music goes jump, but just use the whole phrase to get your leg up, yeah? Otherwise just be careful. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make the off balance even more off if you can. Yeah. So you should look a little bit, that's scary for us.
And take your leg with you.
Shum, bum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Up, off,
That's
up.
better.
Great.
Yeah.
That's better. Yeah.
Take your back leg with you as well, Akane. Don't leave it behind you as you go off balance. Do you know what I mean? There, yeah. Take it with you. That's it. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
So go for it. Don't go for the off back.
Should we go from there again? So just see that. Are you okay to do that? Yeah. Just say if your arms go ooh. Okay. 6 in again. Thanks, Phil. That's good. Good. They're really long here, long position. Good. Stop here. good. Okay. Okay, let's just stop there, guys. We'll just pick it up on that attitude going into there. Just a little bit more on this turn développé, just a little bit more tombé. Don't cut under yourself. Yeah, and James, try and get round and really scoop into her so she doesn't have to pull back when she does the relevé. Yeah, just show me that. Little tombe there, keep going, and then run, that's better. Yeah, even more with that left shoulder, otherwise she's finding it hard to get in.
Yeah.
Get going there, that's better, yeah.
Just be careful, just be careful on the attitude. It's lovely on balance, just be careful your attitude seems to go down, up. Just try to keep it exactly wherever you want it to be. Yeah, so it doesn't have a...
Do you want to just pick it up in the walk around into the attitude? In, yeah, better. Okay, let's just stop there. Thank you. Thanks. Good. Yeah.
You're just a little bit too close to her. Yeah. Yes. Leave a space, you know.
Yeah. Just try that.
Leave a space.
That's better.
At the end as well. Yeah.
Yeah, then it's also got a real sense of risk to it, doesn't it?
That's right.
You're really pulling it. It's like, ah!
Yeah.
You know,
if you don't go all the way, to let go off balance, it's actually it's usually more dangerous than actually to go all the way.
Because you've really got control of her then, you can,
it's like
know
elastic,
where she is.
You're pulling and then it comes back to you. So don't be afraid of...
Yeah. You just want to try that little bit one more time? Have you got the off balance? Just back a little bit from where we stopped.
It's all off balance.
Yeah.
Which off balance?
3 in. 2. Yeah, let's just stop there, thank you. Yeah, just that, we said the other day to really lock her on your hip. Before you start, don't panic and rush into the promenade. Get her really safe, get yourself safe, and then go, yeah. You can always speed up the soutenu if you feel you're late before the penché, but just make sure you're really safe on there, yeah? Do you just want to pick up that last bit just to see that? Have you got the à la secondes across the front? Yes, 6 in. We've got 6 in. Safe. That's better, good. Good. Thank you. Good. Okay. Do you just want to go on a little bit for your solos? Yeah? We've got 2 more minutes. Yeah? Okay. Let's just have a look at your solos. So just a lead into her solo, thanks. Good. Okay, we should stop there. Very good, guys. Thank you very much. Lovely. Thank you.
It's hard, it's good. Well done.
Thank you, Phil.
Well, I know we could go on watching that for a lot longer. I'm sure the dancers are quite pleased now. It's 8:45, as we've heard. They've been in the studio since 10:30 this morning, so it's time to call it a day, sadly. I just want to say, of course, Anastasia is here at the Royal Opera House from the 26th of October, and there's that live cinema relay in cinemas on the 2nd of November. Huge thank you, of course, to Deborah MacMillan, to Gary Harris, to Philip Cornfield, to Laura Morera, to Viv Groskop, to Akane, and to James and Laura for joining us today. And a huge thank you to our audience here at the Claw studio upstairs. I've actually seen that people have been watching in Canada, Japan, the Philippines, Ecuador, Russia, Hungary, to name a few. So really thank you for coming and joining us here today. And one final plug. The 4th of October is Ballet World Day, World Ballet Day. And this is something we started a few years ago, and that's where companies across the world join us, and we have 20 hours of ballet. What more could you want? And so we'd be really happy if you join us, and there will be some extracts of Anastasia in that live relay from the Royal Opera House. So thank you, and good night.